interior powers not enumerated and under the federal government will remain within the constituent regions, which were to enjoy large autonomy with representation abroad as if they were independent. Chief Obafemi Awolowo and other Yoruba leaders had formed the Egbe Omo Oduduwa, from which sprang the action group to the discourse of Azikiwe. Awolowo had written in 1947 in London a book entitled Path to Nigerian Freedom, in which he said Nigeria was a geographical expression and there were no Nigerians as there were French and Germans. This was in sharp contrast with Azikiwe's enthusiasm for a strong black country, a carryover from his education in the United States, where the issue of race was very strong. Azikiwe was on a formidable ground because the NCNC, which he led, had become the most popular mass movement in Nigeria, at least in southern Nigeria, as could be seen in the fact that it was on the ground in most urban centers in southern Nigeria. Around the same time, at the prodding of the British administration, a northern Nigerian Christian Fulani doctor, Dr. R.A.B. Diko, had formed a cultural organization in 1949 called Jamia Mutane Ariwa, which later metamorphosed into the Northern People's Congress. Northern Nigerians and their southern counterparts did not meet until the late 1940s, and were deliberately kept apart by the British, which made even social contact anathema, and southerners lived outside northern towns in what were called Sabongeri, that is New Town, while northerners in the south lived apart from southerners in their own Sabongeri. The two peoples of Nigeria had not met. In fact, a British colonial commentator said if war had broken out in Nigeria in the early 1940s, it would have been between British officials in the north and British officials in the south, not the Nigerians themselves, because they hated each other. This was the genesis of the loose federation bound together by a carefully negotiated protocol that was not intended to forge national unity. This carefully negotiated constitutional arrangement did not have many years to run, starting from 1959, before the military terminated the federal constitution, during the euphoria of military coup d'etat in Nigeria on January 15, 1966. Since 1966, Nigeria has struggled to find a modus operandi of ruling a multinational state, balancing regional desire for autonomy under an overarching national structure. The search for a modus vivendi, the disastrous civil war in which some millions of Nigerian, predominantly Igbo people, died between 1967 to 1970. One would have thought Nigeria had learned a bitter lesson from our recent history, but the contrary is the case. Several unviable states, by the whims and fiat of the military rulers who have dominated the politics of Nigeria for years, have been created, thus miniaturizing the power of the constituent states and increasing the power of the center, while still masquerading as a federal state. No one is deceived. Nigeria has not succeeded yet, and from the various demands for restructuring the country by almost everyone, it seems to me that those in power had better listen and control events from above rather than leaving the people below to demand by force of number. Our future as a country is pregnant, and no one with mathematical precision can hazard what it will bear. As a former ambassador of Nigeria, I'm in favor of finding a solution to our constitutional and structural problem. I saw how size, resources, and population brought us respect abroad. I also know that as late President Nelson Mandela said, that until Nigeria is successful, no one will have respect for the black man anywhere. We have external forces against the success of this country, but the sorrowful thing is that those who are at the commanding height of political leadership in this country appear to be totally oblivious or indifferent to the destiny of Nigeria and the black race. What we need, if this country is to succeed, is to find collective and equitable solution to the way we choose our government and to put in place the administration of the country based on the French Revolutionary credo of careers open to talents, instead of the current nebulous federal character and the odious and rampant corruption ruling the country while the majority of our people vegetate in poverty and in want. During the Babangida regime, he set up a small committee of scholars, including myself and others, from various universities, from the north and the south, to design a formula for solving what was called the national question. We worked under the Ministry of Special Duties in the presidency with absolute freedom to come up with our recommendation. Our chairman was an honorable man, my colleague from Ahmadu Bello, Professor Joseph Inikori, now of the University of Rochester. We came out with a recommendation of collective presidency. We suggested dividing the country into 6 zones, namely South-South, Southwest, Southeast, Northeast, North Central, and Northwest. We suggested that if a president comes from any of these zones, the remaining 5 zones will produce 5 vice presidents, each of them heading the Ministry of Finance, Defense, Interior, Foreign Affairs, and Education. The presidents will be rotated every 5 years so that each zone will have a chance to head the country and no zone will be kept out of power. Political parties will contest for power on this basis, and whoever wins must locate people representing all the 6 zones within their parties. This was submitted, I believe, in 1987, years before the election of 1993, which Abiola won, and some members of the PDP later claimed zoning was their contribution to political engineering in Nigeria. This is not true. The verdict on the way to run Nigeria is still hanging in the air, and we don't have too much time to find an appropriate constitutional architecture with which Nigeria can build a happy state acceptable to all our people. I thank you.
Another round of applause, please. It is not easy for an emeritus professor to stand for over 1 hour delivering a lecture. Prof, thank you very much, sir. May we sit, please? May we sit down, please? Because we are going into a few minutes one of the major events in this lecture. I want to introduce to you a man you know. When he was coming in, when I went outside to receive him, I looked at him from head to toe with his customary headgear. and a designer shoe specially designed for him. And I said to myself, at 94, Chief Ayo Adebanjo can dress like this. I quickly put up a prayer to God. I said, Father, please grant me the grace that at 94 I'll be able to dress like this. Chief Ayo Adebanjo, the leader of Afenifere, the leader of Yoruba, a Nigerian leader, Mr. Integrity, we welcome you, sir. Chukwu gozie gị. God bless you, sir. That's what it means. You're welcome, sir. Before we go into the discussion phase, which is not going to take a lot of time because we have other things, our refreshment, I hope it will not get cold. Our landlord today, Professor Ehosa Osahe, is not around, but he is ably represented by Associate Professor F.N. Ibi, Acting Director of Research and Studies of Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. Professor F.N., you are welcome, sir. For today's discussion on the lecture we have just heard, we have the discussants, those who are not here, who are bent down originally, are represented. But we have in our midst, like I have explained, announced before, His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed. We also have His Excellency Ambassador Humphrey Ojiako, who is going to discuss in place of Chief Nnianwodo. And we also have Mr. Simon Reef, who will stand for Dr. Petrus Pogu. There are many excellencies here, and I'm beginning to catch the virus of the excellent gentleman. Okay, you people plan and give me excellency too. The man that will anchor the discussion today, when I was listening to the lecture, reference was made to the various newspapers established by Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, whose beloved wife is here with us. About 4 or 5 of those newspapers were edited by Chief Chukwuma Anweyago at various times. And it happened that the moderator for today is his son, Dr. Anweyago. So I am sure that while you are moderating, you will also tell us your experience from what your father did during those days of Nigerian nationalism. I will now hand over to the moderator, Dr. Anweyago.
Distinguished Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, my job as a moderator is very simply defined, and I would attempt to make it so because of want of time. I would not offer any opinions because that would be treading dangerously after Professor Osunteko delivered an epic lecture, a lecture in history. And Mr. Chairman, this is the first day that I saw you smile. While you were our governor, I was in the university there. He never smiled. He was precise.
You're still blocking.
He
You're
was
still blocking.
stern.
You're still blocking.
He was a real great governor. And I never thought this was in 1975, I think I was in the second year or so, that I would be standing on the same podium with you someday, moderating your speeches. And thank you for the opportunity of being a great governor for our people. Also, the lecturer, you and I have a connection, being that you were a student of my uncle, not ordinary uncle, real uncle, my grandmother's younger brother, Professor Kenneth Dike. He may have taught you history. And I'm sure wherever he is, and I smile and I say, my boy is doing good. Thank you so much. Like I said, I would offer no opinion, I would moderate. The job of a moderator is to be a referee between warring factions. I don't think we're warring today. But this lecture is critical. History is difficult. Writing and discussing it creates a lot of problems. A lot of problems. We went to the national conference and we had problems because we were trying to write and discuss our national history, to try to restructure it, to change it. But at the end of the day, history is critical to the development of any country. The MC, our emergency MC, I don't think he has done this job before, but he's doing well. Thank you, Grace. Mentioned my father. Started working for Azikiwe in 1941. And he was a good writer. And I remember Zik, the great Zik of Africa, coming to our home. Me, an impressionable little child, would jump all over him. Then one day he gave me a job and said, you think you're wise? Remove all the hair in my head and count them. And I'll give you 1 shilling. And I thought it was easy. He was tricky, he was a good man. And I'm happy his wife is here with us. And those were the ones who created nationalism out of the state. We had a pluralistic society that was founded on Confucian. You know, even the Americans couldn't even have a nation because of the pluralistic nature of the country. Many, many diverse people coming from all cultures, all languages. It was difficult to be a nation. Talk less of being nationalistic. Everybody was dragging the country in different directions. But somebody like Zik saw the vision. He knew that we can only be strong by being together, by using our diversities, like they say all the time, to create a strong country. So, Hakim Baba Ahmed, professor, the doctor, the erudite gentleman here, is the only discussant on the list, but he will lead the discussion. He would help us to dissect the lecture. It was a huge historical lecture. But we need to take this lecture down to our contemporary history, what is going on in the country today, and try to use the activities of the past, the history of the past, to reconcile our position today in Nigeria, to find out where we're going to go tomorrow. Is our history going to help us, or is our history going to be an albatross, a big log in our neck to drag us down? So I invite Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed. I don't know, this is so formal that in lectures of this nature, the discussants usually sit together and talk. And the moderator interjects. And then the audience would ask questions. But in this circumstance, I think we'll just come up to the podium, say whatever we want to say, pass the microphones around so we can have a useful, short discussion and go home. It's been a long day. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have to start by expressing a very deeply seated gratitude for being invited to be part of this event. Truly, I am very, very grateful as a person. And I'm grateful that the Northern Elders Forum and by extension the Middle Belt Forum, my brother is sitting there, have been invited to participate in a major national dialogue. We've been received since yesterday by the tremendous amount of hospitality. I've been made so much at home, and I hardly realized that I come from a different part of the country. This is how it should be. So I'm grateful to Johannes Indigo, Your Excellency, those who suggested that I should be part of this discussion. This is the time when the nation should have more lectures like Professor Oshutuko's lecture. Because truly, we have derailed not so much because we quarreled, but because we forgot the foundations of this country. And what the lecture has done today is to remind us that we are only as strong as a nation as the degree to which we teach our young people where they came from. So this lecture's biggest asset, the biggest point it has made, is to expose the foundations of today's Nigeria, to put it across and tell particularly our young, we didn't just wake up to find Nigeria in existence. It was a big struggle. It was very difficult. We were all a conquered people. Nobody here in Nigeria was not conquered by the British. We were all victims of a nation that came over and imposed its will and its might on us and created out of us a nation called Nigeria. They did many things with us. Some pleasant, some not so pleasant. And in just the 20-something years of the first 40 years of this country, Professor Oshuntoko, in his characteristic manner, has exposed the foundations of a nation that wasn't even sure whether it was going to exist as a nation. For this, sir, we are truly grateful. I teach students history, I teach students public policy, and I'll take this lecture and give it back to them, because in these days we don't hear much about where we came from. We hear about where we are not going or where we are going. But we don't tell our young where they come from. And this is one of the true great tragedies of this country. So thank you very much, sir. And my starting point would be the comment made by Ambassador Biozo, someone I've had the most tremendous respect for many, many, many years. And thank you for your service to the country, sir. When you say, like some Nigerian political leaders have said that Nigerian unity is non-negotiable. I don't know who those people are, but I can tell you they are not the North. They are certainly not affiliated or related to the Northern Elders Forum. Nigerian unity is negotiable. You either negotiate it, because nations are very fragile, very delicate living things, and you have to nurture them, pay attention to their weaknesses and their strengths, address them every once in a while, or they break, and we are at a breaking point. We have seen nations negotiate their existence. They fight wars. The British fought the area for more than 30 years. Now they have arrived at some kind of resolution. Some do it successfully, some fail to do it properly. But anybody who takes the unity of their country as non-negotiable is not talking about a human entity created by human beings. Anybody. And we should say this to those who believe they were not soldiers. It is only the military that will say the Nigerian unity is non-negotiable. And the military is an employer to change Nigeria's future in the next few years.